All right, guys. So, welcome to the part two video of the Simon Says Stamp September card kit from 2021. So, we reviewed it in the first one and talked about where I ranked it and why for me personally. Still a great card kit. I did confirm that the dies are $40 each. So, to get the two sets of dies that go with the two stamps that came with this set would be another $80. They're both out of stock at the time of this video, but they do have a little notify me when back in stock. So all I'm doing here is just looking at the sample sheet, trying to figure out which ones I want to do, finding the papers, pulling them out. And on this one, we're going to do is we're going to fussy cut this again because we don't have the dies to go with it. But this particular pattern that came with this, easy enough to cut out to fussy cut, even if you're not very good at fussy cutting. But again, if you're really going to use the dies, then or the stamp set a lot, then you probably want to get the dies. But the paper patterns here was easy enough to cut out. So we're just doing that and getting everything ready for these cards. We're going to make trying to make four of the 6 cards that are pictured there. So we'll say too that if you're in the club, there is shipping and handling because the invoice I received was for the club price plus a little bit more. So it's like $41. So it's not bad. Looked at the new kit this month, which actually has stencils with it as opposed to 2 stamp sets. So they change a little bit every time each month. So you just kind of have to look and see what you want. But I really do feel like with the Simon Says Stamp card kit, the opportunity there is to buy more items to sort of augment the set. But you can make the cards. You can make several cards just by getting the kit. You can make at least 5 cards probably. I've made the 2 kits I've made 10 cards out of each kit. So with this kit, I think we only made 6 or 7. I decided to make another one right at the very end. But we're going to make these here just to kind of show you that you can make the ones that comes with the sample there. So again, we're just fussy cutting out this particular pattern from the pattern paper. So we're going to fussy cut this and we're going to use this on a card. And we're actually going to have to use some inks to blend and make the card work. So just cutting everything out here and just trying to kind of get that going. So we're going to go ahead and skip ahead just a little bit more for you. And as always, all these videos are going to be super fast. So it's not really about watching step by step, just going to kind of talk you through it. And you can always pause it and take a look if you need to. So for this next little part, what we're going to do is we're going to take one of the card pieces of card from the pad there, and we trimmed it down to get it ready for that card that was on the bottom left. We're going to keep that because we can actually use that part as well as the back side of it. So don't ever throw anything away. You can always use it. But we're going to fussy cut this one out because this is actually the piece that's going to go on the top of the one that's up there in the middle. So we're actually using several pieces, different pads, different pieces from each piece of paper is used on different cards. So there's always room to kind of mix and match as you're working through that. So we got that part done. Now we're just planning out our next card. And one of the things that I like to do is I really just take I take all of the paper and I try and get everything ready. And you can see there we got a pre-made card. We're just laying the pieces out. I'm trying to see how it's going to look. And I'm actually looking at that one, trying to decide if I want to use exactly the way it's pictured. When you get these card kits and you get these samples in there, remember that you have the freedom to make it what you want to make it. And as you'll see when I make the card, I wind up making several changes to the cards that are pictured there. And it's probably because I didn't have the dies where they had the dies, and it was probably a little easier for them. Also, they probably used some different measurements. All the cards I'm doing are A2 cards, 4¼ by 5½. And it looks like one of those cards might have actually been an A7 card, which is 5 by 7. So, and I'm just laying pieces out. I'm cutting out all my pieces, laying them out, trying to get everything ready, so that once we go to assemble the cards, it just kind of goes together. It's just a step-by-step process. And all we're doing here is just trimming down the paper. Now, on this one, we're going to use that green behind it. It turned out a little bit small on the card. I didn't like the way it looks, a little bit tall there. So I actually have to do some trimming. And what I wound up doing was I wound up making my own card out of the green, just making it a little bit longer. So I'm actually going to cut and make my own card so that when I put that card stock on it, it'll just look a little bit better. So got the card ready. Use my bone folder to crease the edges good. You can see the paper's a little bit bigger there. So what we're going to do is we're just going to trim that down a little bit because we got a little room off the bottom and top that we can trim to make it fit the card. So we're going to trim that down so that and we're doing it so that we don't lose much of the picture. And I just like that green border around the edges there. I just think that looks pretty good. Looks a little better than the one that was in the sample card. So now we're just going to get that ready to go. The next thing I want to do is start working on the one with the 3 different colors and the stamped image, which I really like this one. Decided to go a different direction with it as we were playing around and just didn't like the colors on the white. So I went and got some black cardstock and I said, let me try and put a black piece underneath it just to kind of offset it and give it a little bit. So what we're going to do is I'm going to trim this piece down just a little bit smaller than the white so that when I put it on the top, we got that nice little white border around it. And then when I throw the colored pieces over it, it just really stands out, especially with that white image that we're going to wind up using, with the white ink that we use, that glacier white that we use on the 3 different colored pieces. So we'll show you that in just a minute. So I'm getting all my pieces together again, just laying everything out, getting all my card bases done. And again, it doesn't come with the cards. It came with a couple envelopes. So we'll just use some white cardstock, just cut my own. Also, again, you can buy the envelopes and the card sets at places like Michael's or Hobby Lobby, ready to go. And then you just glue your pieces over the top. So the next thing we got to do is figure out how we're going to lay this stamp on these 3 pieces. And that was a little bit tricky for me. I tried to get the measurements precise, but it was all said and done, I was trying too hard to make it work. So we actually just kind of walked away from that. And just cut the 3 pieces. Now those 3 pieces, the pink, the green, and the yellow there, they're the same width and length, but I didn't cut them precise so that there's an 1/8 of an inch all the way around in the middle. It just didn't work out that way. And I want to show you this. If you've never seen this before, that's the sticky grid, which allows me to lay these pieces down and keep them flush and keep them distanced properly so that once I put my image on it, then I know that it's going to line up the way I want it to do. And there's a couple different ways you can do this. You can stamp the image. I could have put them flush and stamped it, and then when you pull them apart, I never think that looks right. I prefer to stamp the image and just let the gap be natural, as it were. So I'm repositioning this because I didn't leave myself enough room to put the stamp in there and get it on the paper. So I actually had to turn it so that I could make everything fit and make the stamp fit. But when you stamp an image and you cut it and then spread it out, it certain times it'll mess with the dimensions of it. I don't know if you ever noticed that or tried that before, if that really makes any sense. But you see the gap in between the papers there. Well, the ink it's not going to stamp into the gap. Obviously, when I lift the image up where the lines would be, your mind kind of naturally sees the line connecting rather than separating them and going, well, those lines don't match up now. And you will actually see that. So once again, this ink here is Glacier White. I was going to emboss, but couldn't find my embossing powder. But I used this Glacier White that I'd had, and I'd never used it. It's just been sitting on the shelf. And I actually fell in love with it. So this is now one of my new favorite inks, and I will be going back and buying some more of this Glacier White. It has a little bit of a sparkle to it. You won't be able to see it in the video, but it works really well. And you can see how the white on the card there just kind of, you can see it. It's nice. It stands out, but it can get lost to me on a white background, which is why I cut out that black piece to go over the white. So we're actually going to put the black piece over that. And you see when I put it on the black, you see how much better that looks, or at least I think it does. So don't be afraid to experiment when you're working with a card, with card making. If you don't think something's working, you want to try something, try it. You don't know until you try. It's your card. It's your creation. It's your creative effort. Do what makes you happy. And as you can see, when I lay that on the black, I just think that looks so much better. So that's what we did on this particular card. Now I won't show you all of this and everything I did, but I did want to show you how it works using the Happy Birthday die. I cut several of these out of the pink. I cut some out of black. I cut some out of white. Was actually going to try a layering technique, but when it was all said and done, I didn't like the way it worked. I might show you that later on in the video. May edit that out. But as we're assembling these cards, you'll see what I mean. You could actually lay the black Happy Birthday down and then lay the pink over it, slightly offset to give it a shadowed look. But I didn't like the way the die was lining up. It's a very flexible. When you cut it out, that Happy Birthday, it bends, and it's just very hard to manipulate. I will also say that this is on regular cardstock that came with it. I didn't put any adhesive on the back of it. If I were to use this particular die again, I would go ahead and use adhesive back, make it a lot easier. So you'll see a little bit later on when we're putting the cards together, I tried some different things and just made it a little more difficult on myself than it needed to be. So I'll go ahead and tell you now, you'll see I wound up using the fine tip, precision tip glue bottle, and that actually worked the best without having the adhesive on the back. And so here we're going to do one out of black. And so we just cut a little bit of this out. So we're going to go ahead and jump ahead to the next part in the video. So what we're going to do here is go ahead and get this particular card ready. And what I'm going to do is grab some of my Distress ink. I'm actually going to go with Cracked Pistachio. A little bit different color than was used in the sample. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use my ink blending tool. And I'm going to go ahead and get the card ready to put these pieces over it. And I'm actually going to put those on there with some foam tape to raise it up off the card. And that'll help give kind of a shadow effect underneath it from the ink. So all I'm doing at this point is just grabbing my ink and just blending. And I'm going to leave it open a little bit in the middle. I don't want a perfect blend. I want it shaded. I want it kind of shadowed. And as you can see, when I put it on there, I actually just want that just to kind of show up underneath, coming out from underneath the two pieces that we cut out there. So I'm going to leave a little bit of a white strip in the middle, and you'll see once we lay that over it, and it gives it kind of a clouded look there. So we get that done. Now we move on to this card, and you see where you've got the black piece there, and I'm adding some tape to the back of those three strips, and we're just centering them on the black piece, and then we're going to trim those down, and then we're going to put that over the card front. And look how much better that looks, at least it does to me anyways. I really like the way that came out. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to grab the Happy Birthday stamps that came with the kit, and we're going to go ahead and stamp out several of the Happy Birthdays onto some white cardstock. It's actually a scrap piece. You can see a little bit of the ink on the bottom there. So we're going to just stamp several of these on there, and then we're just going to fussy cut them. You could cut them out with a die. You could cut them square, rectangle. You could use a trimmer, however you want to do it. I actually use the trimmer for some of these. But you can also take your scissors and fussy cut them a little bit, so that if you'll see that on the sample down there, if you look at it, it's kind of offset a little bit. So we're actually gonna do that. And I went ahead and stamped a couple onto some of the green too, because I did want some different ones. I just wanted several different Happy Birthdays that I could use. Some black on white, some black on green. And we're gonna cut those out and have those ready. Whenever you're stamping something like that, go ahead and stamp out some extras, and you'll have them. Throw them in your little box. I have several different boxes, and they're labeled miscellaneous, ephemera, sentiments, greetings, and then just go through your box. Maybe you've got one ready, you can throw a card together, and that way you don't have to go through the time of pulling out your stamps just to stamp out one to make a card. And so you see, I'm sorry I'm off camera here, but again, we're working with a new setup and having to adjust that, so these next videos will be better. But I went ahead and trimmed it out to look like the one on the sample. Now, I didn't like putting it in the bottom right. I didn't want to cover up those pretty flowers. So I put it in the top left, and that just, to me, looks better, and that's the card. So again, when you're doing these cards, you use the ideas, but do them the way you want to do them. So we're going back now to the card that we had blended a little ink on. I don't like white crisp edges on my cardstock, so we just went over that with some of that same colored ink. Using some foam tape just to raise up these pieces that we had fussy cut. And you can do it however you want to. I like to make sure it's close to the edges. I like to have a little flexibility in my pieces when they're raised up. And then we're just going to put that on the card. There's a little bit of an overlap, so we will go back and trim everything off. And so just using the tape there, just cutting it to fit, and just making it so that we can put that on the card. So we're going to put that in the top left corner. And we're going to go over to trim off those extra pieces. Then we're going to grab our little Tim Holtz set there, and we're going to peel off the one that says Missing You, and just like that, that sample card is done as well. So you can see these cards go together really, and they actually look really good and really nice. So we're going back to this one now, which I'm going to do this one a little bit different as well. And this one I struggled a little bit with. I actually laid the pink. We're actually using the fine tip precision glue there. Again, adhesive sheets would have worked so much better. So we're going to lay down Happy Birthday in pink, and then I'm going to lay the white over it. Actually, just kind of wish I just left it with the pink. I think that would have been fine. Trying to offset it it didn't cooperate well, and so I did not. I just didn't like the way it came out. So in hindsight, we would do that a little bit different. And what we're actually doing here now is just cutting out that happy birthday in white because apparently I didn't do it, so we had to go back and do that. But again, I just didn't like the way it looked. I think I would have just gone with the white on the black. The pink might have been okay there too. But trying to line up, sometimes trying to line up a die on top of another die, it's a skill set. You take your time and do it. I just next time I won't do the hassle of that. But I did make a decision on this one to do something a little bit different. Um, I grabbed some twine from my stash, and I actually wanted to tie a little bit of the twine around the bottom of this. And so we just tried a couple of different techniques and just fidgeted with it for a while, and trying to get a bow and trying to get it tied the way I wanted to get it. Went ahead and laid down some of the trying to get the twine in place. But I was just glued it down. And so it make it a little bit easier to work with. I made this a lot harder on myself than it needed to be. But when it's all said and done, we got it pulled snug, got it the way I wanted. And you can see this is sped up. So I fidgeted with this way longer than I needed to. But when it's all said and done, I actually trimmed it and pulled it together and just tied it into a knot. I just said, forget the bow. This is not working. And actually I almost cut it too short. But we were able to get it done to where it looked good. So then once we got that done, then we just we tried to put the white over that again. Didn't like the way it looked, so we won't do that again. And then we're just going to glue that onto the card front. So this one's almost done. This will take a little bit more work than we needed to. Live and learn. As I've said before in my other videos, I'm new to this, so part of making these videos is so you can learn from my mistakes. And then if it helps you to do something easier next time around, then that's great. So there we've got that. And we're going to go ahead and put that onto the card front and just use some of my tape there, press that down. And that little piece that we cut out, that extra piece, we're going to grab some foam tape on it and we're going to raise that up a little bit and we're just going to pop that right there. And that's pretty close. And that's actually a very pretty card. Looks very good. So the next card, also pretty easy. We just grabbing the stamp from the stamp set there and just using a little stamp block. Now I like to stamp on a blank sheet of paper, scrap sheet of paper, just to make sure my ink is loading up right to see how the ink's going to look. And then we just stamp it right on the card there. It's a little risky sometimes. I don't always get it quite straight, but anyways, we just glue it onto the green card front and that card is done. I actually went back and decided to dig through some of my personal ephemera. I just felt it needed something. I found these two beautiful little pieces, these flowers and this little rose piece that matched the coloring really well, and went ahead and attached those to the cards as well. On the inside, just put a little note card there, just to try and give it just a little something extra. So again, I had to add a little bit from my stash. Thought it looked good. So on this card, we're stamping the. Now we're going to skip some of this, but I just want to show you. I actually wound up stamping the vase and the flowers. And the end result is, trying to get it right, and I didn't have my magnets in the right place, so it took a couple times to try and get the ink to go the way I wanted it to. Finally got it on there, stamped some flowers over. I actually create a mask and masked it and stamped flowers over it, but then realized I didn't want the vase in front of the flowers. I actually wanted it sitting in the flowers. So when it's all said and done, I'm actually going to wind up just cutting this out and just kind of fussy cutting it and stamping it onto and just using some dimensional foam, just putting on a card. We'll show you that in a minute. So I'm actually using this sticky grid, an old piece of sticky grid for the mask. The problem with that is it's sticky on both sides, so it created problems. So next time we're creating a mask, we're just going to use the one-sided sticky paper. We're not going to use the two-sided, but it's really easy to cut out the mask. And then like you'll see once we stamp the flowers over this, it worked really well. It just had the vase sitting in front of the flowers. And then for some reason, just didn't have my stamp pad right, so the flowers shifted a little bit, created kind of a ghost image. I didn't like it. So like I said, we just wound up cutting this out. So just wanted to show you that. And then we'll show you just a little bit of the coloring, jump to the end of it where we colored this, and then we just fussy cut it out and used it. So we'll show you that in just a minute. So you can see here I've already started coloring in with my colored pencils. I love coloring with colored pencils on a nice smoother white cardstock. There's something just very relaxing about it. And again, I think I mentioned before, I've done other videos on coloring. We'll do some more. I like to color. I need to do some and just put music in the background, and hopefully it'll be as relaxing for you as it is for me. You won't have to listen to me talk and tell you that I'm coloring when you can clearly see that's what I'm doing. But I want you to know that you don't need Copic markers. You don't need real expensive stuff. You could do this if it was on watercolor paper. You could do it with your inks, your water-based inks. You know, Tim Holtz Distress inks. I love to watercolor with those. You can do it on, if you do it on Yupo, you can do it with alcohol inks, although that's very tricky. So I just wanted to show you. All I'm doing is just using colored pencils. If you want shading, you can either change the color of the pencil. Those roses there, that's actually the same color pencil. I just put an extra coat on it. I just went a little heavier in some places. But this pattern was real easy to fussy cut. So I'll actually probably use this stamp quite a bit. What I'll do is sit down one day and I'll stamp off like 10 of these, color them in, and then just sit and fussy cut them and put them in a box and have them ready to use. It's real easy to do. I'll do that before I'll spend the $40 on the die set. So thankfully this was an easy enough one to fussy cut out. So I just wanted to show you that. Then we're going to go ahead and jump ahead a little bit to the assembly of the card. So I went ahead and put the cutout figure there, the cutout vase and flowers there on my stamp platform, and used one of the stamps that came with the set. Used the thank you. There's actually two that fit right in that banner very nicely. So I just went with the thank you and got that ready. Just grabbed our white card front, went and grabbed some of the paper from the kit, cut it out to fit just a full covering of the card base there, trim it down, and then we're just going to use some foam tape just to raise this up, just to pop that on the front of the card. And this one's done. This one's real simple, real easy. A little work in the base and everything, but when you put it over a beautiful background like that, I think that is just a beautiful, simple card. Very nice. So the last thing we're going to do is we're going to take a couple of cards, and was experimenting with them. I was trying to figure out how I wanted to use up my extra pieces, some scrap pieces that I had. And just wound up just trying to throw a card together that wasn't really in the set. Again, as I said, those are just ideas. One of the things I like to do is use layered cards, and I wanted to use the washi tape that came with the kit. So I just took some of the washi tape, put some over the top and over the bottom, and it gives it a little dimensional look to it. Just looks really nice. And so we put some washi tape on it. And then went and found from my stash, or actually from the card kit where we cut out one of those pieces, was trying to figure out what I wanted to put on there. And I took one of the pieces that came with the kit and just stamped a little sentiment on it there, and then just raised that up with some foam tape and put that on the front of the card. So this is just one I just kind of threw together, and I really like the way that this one came out as well. I will say I didn't let the ink dry, so it smudged a little bit. But anyways, you can't really see that, and that finished up that card. All right, so as we enter into the home stretch here, one more card that I decided to do last minute. Just took some white cardstock and cut it to fit to A2 and scored it. My paper trimmer was a little bit rough, needs to be replaced. So what I'm doing with the scissors there is removing some of the fur off of the edges of the paper there. And I'm just taking a couple extra pieces of stock that I had and started to go with a 3-tone and a 2-tone, trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and just trying things out. Again, that's all you're doing here. You're just what looks good to you. And sometimes I'm making a card, oh, this is a bad idea. Once you glue it down, you're like, oh, why'd I do that? But then when it's all done, I really like the way it looks. And so I'm just laying pieces over. I'm trying to figure out which piece do I want, thick or thin. I'm just trying to get a feel for it. There's no rhyme or reason. You don't have to go with a measurement, 1 inch wide, 2 inch. You don't have to do any of that. So on this one, I decided that I would go back to my washi tape. And what I'm actually going to do is put the washi tape on the bottom, and I'm going to flush that piece of that cardstock up to the washi tape. So instead of having that sort of that ridge like I had on the other card, which I liked that on the top and bottom, I'm just going to flush that washi tape, flush it right up to the washi tape. And what I'm noticing is I've got just enough room for another piece of washi tape at the top. I was going to use cardstock, and so I thought, no, let's stick with the washi tape. And did not plan this. It's just a happy accident that little strip of washi tape and the one underneath it, the card, actually fit right in between there just perfectly. So we're actually going to go ahead and glue that down, and then we're going to use our going to grab one of those little pieces at the top there that we grabbed just to put something on it, and just kind of just figuring it out as we go. So like I said, this one's a little bit slower than the others because I wanted you to see this process on this last card and have a little more time to talk to you. And once we finish this one up, we'll pull all the cards together and review them for you. So I actually changed my mind. I just remembered we were going to put the tags on there, and then I decided, well, I've got these birthdays that I cut out, so let's go ahead and put one of those on there. So I grabbed the black one. The pink one just kind of blended in too much. And so just using my precision glue tip applicator there, just put some glue on the back of it. This actually does work fine. Again, if it's a double-sided adhesive, obviously makes your job a lot easier. You just got to get the hang of running it through your die machine. But that fine tip, I went out and bought a couple more bottles of this because I absolutely love this glue now. It's so easy to work with on these word dies. It looks crooked, but it's not, okay? Just the camera angle, I can tell you as I'm looking at it, I know when I finish the card that the happy birthday is not crooked. And so it does look that way, but that's just the way, it's just the way it is, I think. And don't forget the little dot for the eye. So there we go. That's the last card that we did there. The washi tape, the paper, it looks really good. Just kind of has a nice feel to that, like that. So we're going to lay these cards out for you so you can kind of see them. I do apologize, I didn't zoom the camera back out. I actually will do that towards the end. I made it a little hard trying to fit them all into my workspace, but I wanted you to see all of the cards kind of when they were all put together, what they looked like. Actually, what I'm doing right now is fumbling around trying to find an envelope, and just decided to grab one of the white envelopes. And so there's that card ready to go. And again, just using envelopes from my envelope stash. So we'll zoom the camera out here in just a minute to give you a little bit better view. But there's the two cards that I made just using the washi tape, cardstock, stamps, everything that came with the kit. So there's also everything on that one came with the kit, okay, except for the envelopes again and the ink, but that's a given. So we're going to zoom out just a little bit for you guys there. So there's three of them. Those are the three that I did. I just like the way those came out. And then here are the ones that, based on the sample cards. Again, a little bit different. Feel free to modify those cards to suit your personal tastes. You can see we added the vase to that one. This one, we moved the happy birthday, added the black background. But once all said and done, I really liked all these cards. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 cards that we completed from this kit. Actually, it's 8 cards. We're going to grab the other one. So there they are. So I'm just trying to lay them out where you can see them. So once again, I hope this has been encouraging to you. I do like the kit. Again, I buy it from time to time. I've only bought it a couple of times. I'm not a subscriber. If I see something I like, I get it. But it's a good kit, but it's not top ranked for me. But maybe this works for you. Maybe this gives you what you need. Again, you try it out and see what you like. And hopefully this is giving you some ideas, if not with using a kit, at least just with making your own cards and having fun. So once again, this is Pastor Ian the Krabby Crafter saying happy Krabby crafting.